Thank you for staying with us, or is it for joining us? Whichever one it is, you're welcome. So now let's get the show on the road. Over the decades, there has been a recurrent and sustained argument that Nigeria, like its counterparts in Africa and other countries of the developing world, underperform due to a lack of state capacity to deal with the contemporary complexities of governance. 12 years after its original authors gathered to present it to the Goodluck Jonathan administration, there was news recently that President Tinubu has ordered the implementation of the Oronsaye report. The move has brought the debate about the cost of governance to the front burner yet again. The report on public sector reforms was submitted in 2011, and it, among others, seeks to reduce, abolish, and merge agencies. The cost of governance and the similitude in the way of carrying out functions of different government agencies has been a major source of concern. Now, to dissect this with us this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome a facilitator at the Institute for National Transformation, Mrs. Juliet Binitie.
Good morning. My pleasure being here.
Good morning. As well as Professor Anthony Kila, Jean Monnet Professor of Strategy and Development and Director General, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
And thank you for joining us. As they say, ladies first. The Oronsaye report is back in the front burner. To your mind, how is this report going to change the way that things are regarding governance in Nigeria?
You know, sometimes I wonder who is actually pushing some certain narratives after 12 years. I am looking at the gamut of leadership according to the Chandler Good Governance Index of recent 2023. On top of the list for good governance is leadership and foresight. Singapore, a tiny nation, is number 1. Switzerland is number 2. Of course, yours truly is far, far below.
In the bottom somewhere.
In the entire list, we are 100 out of 104. The reality is that the Oronsaye report is not the matter arising. Yes, there are issues within it, especially the issue of big government that needs to be reduced on necessary, what do they call it, parastatals, reducing the cost of governance. But above the reduction of all that is competencies. The greatest challenge with governance in Nigeria is competency and ethical leadership. We have refused to follow the line items that the international world are looking at. You can't build a nation in the 21st century in isolation. A report of 12 years is okay. It can be reviewed for reference. But it cannot be the base for leadership at this time. The attendant issues after 12 years is not the same.
Well, you know that there's been a lot of clamor over the years for that particular report to even be given a second look by any government.
Yes, as a review. But you see, even the crisis of leadership within our continent includes an elite class that does not understand it. Whether we like it or not, governance is about the people serving their interests. And one of the pillars of the Chandler Good Governance list is helping people to rise. There is a list that we need to start looking at as a union, as a people. We have people from different parts of the spectrum of Nigeria, and we know where certain attendant issues are prevalent. We need to take all documents, not just the Oronsaye 12 years ago, all documents that has indicator for success, and review each one and bring a leadership foresight. You can't come up with copy and paste.
Okay.
What's incidental is that, there are some reports, and I think maybe Prof might be able to speak to it. There are some reports that date way before independence that some people now are saying, guys, why don't you even give it thought? We're not saying, deploy as is,
Yes,
but give
review.
it thought to them. But what we are talking about, Prof, is not cost of governance, but challenges of governance.
Yes, which is the bigger question.
Yeah, one of the things that I've come to understand about the challenges of governance is like a parent in the house, right? The children just want. They don't care what daddy is going through or has to go through to get what we want.
Yeah.
I joke with my kid. Years ago, she was about 6 or 7. So we went to the mall and I said, Daddy, let's buy this shop.
Straight away.
Good
I said, Say, yes. He mentioned the main one, the main shop at the mall. Say, let's buy this place. I said, Say, yes. So tomorrow we'll come back and we'll buy it again. Say, yes. Say, correct. So that's children for you.
Yeah.
They don't know the challenges of the parents.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that governance challenges are similar? That there are facts Nigerians don't have that militate certain activities that people expect government to take?
Well, I think, yes, there are situations like that. And I'm very convinced that part of the role of leadership, before we go to governance, is actually to share the big picture with people.
That's it.
Of course, to do that, you need an educated citizenry. The example you use of a child is a very apt example because a child cannot understand the constraints, limitations that guides aspiration. But the duty of a good parent, like the good government, is to sit down your family and explain to them that this is what daddy earns a month. This is how we're going to manage it. So let's be careful. And when they start growing, if you are a parent that truly live within your means, that you're not stealing, you're not fibbing somewhere, you can explain to them that I would have loved to have done this for you, but we don't have it yet, and this is how we're going to manage it. Or, because of what we want to do, this is why we cannot do this. You quickly teach them opportunity cost, and you add value to it. But then you also give them a dream to say, well, if you can study hard, maybe you can get a scholarship to go to school, and that will save us a lot of things. You see, what you're doing there, you're not only sharing the burden, you're also sharing responsibility with them. So burden is to let them know what you're carrying. Responsibility is to know what part they need to play.
That's right.
Our problem is that for some reason we've adopted a sort of philanthropic, deferential, parental kind of leadership. I call it Babaism, rather than democracy. And that means that we just assume that the government should just give. But then, you can't blame people because that's what all the government offers as well. Because in most cases, those ruling us lack the moral authority to ask for sacrifice. Because you do not see them doing the sacrifice themselves.
It's instructive that you use the word those ruling.
Yes,
not
very good.
those leading.
Not those leading, those ruling. That's the word. Yes.
There's a
difference.
dichotomy.
There's
Help
a
us
semantic
understand
thing
that. Because no, I don't think it's actually more of an operational word.
Yes.
So explain it, because you talked about sharing the big picture. Rulers don't do that.
They don't tend to do that.
Leaders do that.
Yes.
Rulers don't share any big picture. They just get up and go.
You see, a lot of our rulers act like the artisans you call to your house.
But do we need rulers or leaders?
No, but that's what we have. Leaders would be ideal. Having leaders would be ideal thing. Very quickly, leadership is about taking a group of people, a system, or a collective from a point to another based on a shared vision. That's a very concise definition of leadership. Rulership is just manage power, to be there and do what you wish.
Professor, you've mentioned a shared vision.
That's correct. Yes, that's very crucial.
What would you say is first of all, do we have a shared vision in Nigeria?
Well, you see, technically we do. The idea of being Nigeria, a country, the Constitution should be our shared vision. But beyond the Constitution, I always tell people that beyond what is written, unwritten rules are bigger than written rules.
Sorry, but before you go into the English of what you're saying, shared vision. We agree there's a possibility that we can say that the Constitution is our shared vision.
Yes.
But what's the vision statement? Does the Constitution have a vision statement that's concise? 3-word, 5-word, 10-word statement that
Well,
people
it
can say,
promotes.
this
No,
is it.
you don't even need to go to the Constitution. If you look at our what's that thing called, the emblem, progress, unity, and faith. That's what we should be for: unity, progress, and faith. You know, that is
Unity and faith, peace and progress.
peace and progress. Those are the kind of things that bind us. The problem is that we don't actually lead it in our everyday life. We don't act that way. But more importantly, I think that the vision is a continuous thing. You know, we should move every year,
Should always
every
be
day,
aspirational.
towards a more perfect union. You know, we must try every time to keep improving what we have. To the thing of governance, where you started from, there are 3 things to look at it. Generally speaking, do we, as a people, as observers, as analysts, believe that there are inefficiencies in the machine of government? I think yes. If you travel across the country, leave Lagos and Abuja out of it. If you want to know how inefficient and how wasteful our government, go to some states outside our capital, especially the federal government, and you see federal government offices that are full of grown grass. I make it a point, because I go around the country a lot, to sometimes go inside and see what's going on there. Nothing. There are many of them like that. So yes, there are inefficiencies to do that. There's also a question of output. You know, there's a question of saying, who's the DG, who's the CEO of this agency? What exactly are you doing every day, monthly? What are you bringing to the table? An audit report should do that. So we agree, there's a general inefficiency that needs to be looked at. That is what the Oronsaye report came out. That is the origin of it. There's also an issue, is that report stale? Yes, it is stale, because a lot has happened since the time it was done. And here is where leadership and responsibility come in. Instead of acting as if it's a general issue we have, we need to call out the name of the people that made it stale. The Buhari administration is guilty of having a report that they did not look at. You see, part of the problem we have in this country is that for some reason, and I blame analysts for this, for some reason, we tend to talk generally as if the problems we have are some kind of alien-inflicted problem, as if we don't know. We need to start calling name and surname. We need to say clearly that somebody went into government, a group of people were in power for 8 years, they had something that was clamored for, and they did not touch it. They did not implement it. That is why it has gone stale. It is not because something happened that God knows what we have to pray about. We have a lot to pray about, but the ones that are human, let us call it out. So that is why it is stale. Third point, what is the way forward? A good way forward is to review what has been done, see how good it is, and say, how do we adapt it to the reality of today? Now, there is a point. I'm currently working on a book on policy formulation. And there's a point I'm very keen on. So let me give you something here. It's called connectedness in policy formulation. Generally, what people talk of holistic, people of content. Nigeria is a good example where there's no connectedness. Connectedness is the idea of everything linked together. It's a good example of a country where things are not linked together. Because in the meantime, when this administration has announced that they're going to implement that report, what did their fellow politicians in the legislative arm of government do? They want to create new agencies. When they're talking of closing the existing ones, that's the kind of thing that it's trying to do.
But
to go and buy the shop again.
It perhaps goes back to what he's talking about the other time about lack of a shared vision.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the challenge here, it was announced. Now, the question anyone who should be asking is, has it been significantly communicated, sold to the people?
Of course not.
What's
It
missing?
hasn't been sold to nobody.
But everyone has been clamoring for it. You know that.
Clamoring is different from educating citizens. The National Orientation Office, I will come back to her 1,000 times, has a responsibility to create the environment for this shared vision. Before you even talk about shared values, within our national anthems and our pledge, We have values written all over it.
Oh, no, there are national ethics in the Constitution. I think that's...
no, before even the
Section 22.
ethics, the value of a nation, whether you are at government level, you are at the marketplace, or you're a young child, you need to understand what is happening within your country and how do we educate the people. Because whether we like it or not, leadership and foresight is the #1 parameter for good governance. So in other words, a leader sees that a nation is going far. Take, for example, Uganda is trying to move from 50 billion to 500 billion per capita within 5 years. And because the leader himself, even in the list of good governance in Africa, Uganda is showing up, is beginning to show up. Nigeria's challenge, like he said, the interconnectedness is lacking. For example, if you have such a high illiteracy population, people who can read, write, even in their own language. We're not talking about read and write in English. First of all, even in their own native language. How do you cascade a buy-in? Because a nation is not only governed from the federal level. Government must cascade to the lowest level, where there is participation, agreement, where all of us come together. For example, Chandler said that financial stewardship, strong institution, robust laws. Within that report, how do you juxtapose it in the 21st century of how nations after COVID-19 are beginning to reshape their society?
But when you say, my apologies, when you say that, you know, the federal government is not only the federal government that is Nigeria, the states also are Nigeria. So there should be that interconnectedness.
To the grassroots.
How should that be engaged? Because
implemented.
Yes, one of the things we have heard over and over again is every state has its autonomy. Every state is autonomous one way or the other.
But it's interconnected.
Secondly is the fact that not every state is on one political party platform. So if you want unity in diversity, we literally have to market it one way or the other. And we all know that politicians have a fantastic way of wanting to outdo themselves or make themselves look bad, just so that we can look good if and when we get the opportunity. So how do we navigate that? How does any government navigate that?
Take, for example, the Tinubu APC government. Even the fact that you have a Wike in Abuja is a statement that can be used to cascade a lot of things if they are wise. And a president is not a president of his party, but of a nation. And if he is wise, he will have a program that will cascade through all political parties based on their own shared values. Remember, every party has a manifesto. If I am a president, I will bring all parties' manifesto to my table and look at our shared values. Because you see, the interest of the average Nigeria is not so much of partisan politics. It's what is good for their prosperity, their education, and their advancement.
But Mrs. Binitie, those manifestos can't be one too different from the other. Because it's so easy for a person to be PDP today and be APC tomorrow.
You just got the point. You just got the point. That is the point. The point of reference is that we are not so diverse. There's not so much diversity in our politics. So in that kind of an environment, you can quickly create shared value, shared vision, shared prosperity. Because there are a lot of indicators to trigger the nation to agree. Take, for example, number one, you have an education system, even though the entire curriculum, as far as I'm concerned, needs an urgent overhaul, a major urgent overhaul. But howbeit, you have the primary school, you have secondary, you have university, you have churches, you have mosques, you have civil society at all levels. You can cascade interests. What is the interest? The interest is not an APC interest. The interest is the national
Nigerian
interest. He said, Nigeria, arise, O compatriot. Nigeria, call, obey. Not an Ishekiri call. it's not an Ibibio call, it's not a Hausa call, it's a Nigerian call. And so that leadership capacity at the federal level, understanding that an Oronsaye report plus the ones that some people are clamoring in before 1960 and all the garments, because you see, the elite class have a knack for pontification. So we need to move beyond the talk. What will work as a people? So we need, again, the national, we are not even talking about our confab.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking Oronsaye. How about the confab?
Give it time.
At least the confab. At least the confab was also a national document with people with so much passion contributed from all over. There were fights, there were arguments, but they settled with a report. Yet that report, like he said, for 8 years was ignored. Oronsaye ignored. So it's not about the number of papers within our system. It's for the African, I'm going even beyond Nigeria, to understand governance and leadership of improving the lives of the people and the nation for our own reputation. Guess what? We are the one who are suffering for the lack of good governance in our country.
Yep.
People, other nations can take, I heard that Togo or one nation can go to South Africa on visa on arrival. I applied for visa to South Africa online. They were asking me for death certificate of my parents. And at the end, I couldn't go for the conference because my visa too didn't come out. Yet Nigeria played a lot of roles in the South Africa during the apartheid period.
Yeah, during apartheid.
So we haven't gotten to the point of understanding that our reputation is at stake, our collective reputation. As Nigerians, we can lead big boys and big girls in our individual lives, but governance is not a show. Governance is a reality for people's lives to advance and become greater than where they have ever been.
Professor, we can't talk about governance without talking about the level of corruption that we have in this country.
Yeah.
Oronsaye report, the confab, all of that. How is all that affecting what we're doing or what we are going to do about this corruption that seems to be the bane of our lives?
Well, I think there's no doubt that corruption is something that really is affecting our life. But let me take an unpopular position. I agree totally that corruption is bad. But I think the bigger problem we have is indolence and mischief rather than corruption.
Mischief?
Yes, lack of vision.
So, truth is that there's a lot of incompetent people that are managing very sensitive roles. And a lot of time, incompetence leads to mischief. Take your artisans, for example. They don't know what they're doing. They start telling you stories. Take your staff or your students, for example. They come late and they start telling you stories. So you can see the link between lack of discipline, the indolence, and the laziness, and then the mischief that comes in.
Depth of values.
Corruption is a bad thing, but it's not so difficult to manage if we really want to. It's because there's a lot of people who don't want to, that is what I'm imagining. The idea that Nigeria is so fragmented, this politics thing that you're talking about, partisan politics,
exactly.
It is the least of our problems for two reasons. Number one, politicians, Nigerian politicians, that is, I stay within Nigeria, the rate at which they can change political parties, people don't change their bank or churches the way politicians can change it. And people don't even change it. I mean, there are people who are sad in their marriage, they're still there. Nigerian politicians have no problem. They just move on, move out. So partisan politics is not our problem at all. It's not a problem for the elite. It's not a problem for the people, because if any leader anywhere in the country does something good, people will rally around him or her very easily. And I want people to take note. The reason why the Eagles, when they play well, our athletes, when they perform well, the chess man is becoming a star. A lot of people do not even know one piece about chess. But just because the Nigerian is doing well, they rally around him. The lady who drove around,
yes,
people are feeling part of it, because you know what they see? They see hard work, they see sweat, they see vision, and they see success.
But are they willing to toe that line?
That is the thing. No, not many people are willing to toe that line for two very simple reasons. Because really, let me say this as a teacher. If you're telling people about vision, hard work, endurance, and they look at the window or look at the newspaper or browse, and what they see is success without hard work, it becomes difficult
to communicate,
to really inspire them. Because what they see is shortcut around them. But deep down, people like. You see, when people say your grammar is too much, deep down, they do like who speaks well. It's just because they live in a society where indolence allows them to get away without hard work. You know, when people say, no, come to my level, I say, no, you rise up a bit.
Yeah. That's it.
I'll see you tomorrow. Go and rise up today. But deep down, we like good things. It's just because we have a system that allows bad things. And I think that's what we need to look at.
Did you see on social media the boy who ran away from home? And he was interviewed. Why did you run away? Oh, my parents were not feeding me. Oh, they were beating me too much. Yeah. They said, do you want to go to school? Yes. What do you want to become? Do you remember his answer?
What did he say?
A Yahoo boy.
There you go. Because those are the people. Those are the kind of things we need to deal with. But I think the way around it, actually, is competence. Because this corruption that people talk about, I think competence can beat corruption. Because if you have people, well, I put it this way, it is competence and reward for competence. If you have people whose task, whose vision is to say, I am going to invent an app that will flush out corruption in a certain system, and those people get rewarded for it, that is what is going to help us. And you see, we talk about government a lot. By the way, when we say information is not cascaded enough, people in the National Assembly who are making laws that are odds with what the vision of the government is saying, they don't need National Orientation Agency. They need somebody to pick up the phone and say, hello, is your temperature okay there? Is there anything wrong?
Are you okay?
Are you okay? Do you hear what the president is saying? Those ones don't need national orientation because it's their job to read newspaper and you talk about politics, they do it. Maybe the general public, yes. But you see, the other point is this. Our problem is man-made. We have created a society where people are thriving out of chaos and out of blocking progress rather than adding value to progress. We've created a society where if the government does something, some people will not let it work, so you can bribe them. They thrive on begging and bribing. And government needs to then look at who is going to help us do this system in a way that would overcome begging and bribing so things can work. That is what we need to be thinking. And this is what our thinkers, our academics, our technical people, our churches, our mosques, this is what they need to be thinking about. I think it's more of competence because you see, corruption happens where people are not competent. Let's put it that way.
Mrs. Binitie, talking about bribing and all that, I was very pleased yesterday when the E-Gate, when the minister was telling us that he had gone to inspect the E-Gate and the E-Gate would be in operation from next week, which now removes your interaction with people. It reduces that when you get to the airports. So why is it that we're not looking at automating a lot more things so that the chance for you to actually get things done through bribing, the chances will be reduced?
Because they enjoy the bribery. Yeah. Number one, bribery is making some people rich. No, bribery makes some people very rich. Like you said, they don't have competence, but they are making their money and driving a big car and living in a big house. So for you to get people also to pull away from bribery, one of the things that great nations have done, back to leadership and foresight, is that they looked at their nation and said, what kind of nation do we want to be? Because for you to also, if your corruption also is lower, the indication is that the capital investment coming to your country will be higher.
Yeah. Of course.
It's a fact.
Of course.
So corruption is a threat to a society. But like you said, competence can overcome corruption. But how be it? Competence, that word competence, needs to be defined also by us.
Because it is subjective.
Exactly, because as an elite class, we tend to look at certain people because they've been in the political sector or in governance for a very long time. We now call them competence. But their entire track record does not show the competency.
Okay. But I think looking at people in politics for a long time and calling them competent, it's a good sign of the incompetence of the looker.
Yes. I grew up
Okay, all right.
But
Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies. We have to run. We have less than 2
but we had the
minutes.
conclusions.
Yeah. So that's the conclusions now, and this part perhaps is missing most times. Is carrying along, because I'm always about sustainability. Carrying along the younger generation in a way that they will take ownership. Now, we're talking about challenges of governance now. We have identified a number of things. How do we market Nigeria to them with these challenges and market the hope in a nation that is the way it is right now?
Like you said, exemplary leadership. If a leader does not show the example and paint the picture and live by it, you're wasting your time, because integrity is part of leadership a journey that makes the difference in governance.
Okay.
If you don't have integrity and you are painting a picture of a great Nigeria, but you're not willing to pay the price, like a national leader I know in Africa, everything he wears from his head to his toe must be made in his country. So he has set the tone to entire nation that he's proud of what Ugandans make, he's proud of what this country makes, and he's wearing it. So there are ways to do this whole lot of things. Okay. And as we continue the discussion, we need to understand that the leadership, like I said, to concern the youth, you need to give them a buy-in. Okay. The young man that wants to be a Yahoo, he knows that many people doing this business are not arrested, they are not detained. If there is a fear of arrest within that, the young man will not want to be that. Prof. So they allow him to
Your
go
last
on.
word, please.
I think everybody should do their bit. I think our problem starts from the bottom. Let teachers teach people to believe in their capacity and to not rely on the top. I think that is what's going to help us. There's too much reliance on the top at the moment, and I think we need to grow out of that. We need to grow the civil society and leave government a bit.
Awesome.
Leave government a bit and grow yourself, believing in integrity and merit. That is the long and short of all of this. Thank you very much, Professor Anthony Kila, Jean Monnet Professor of Strategy and Development and Director General, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, as well as Mrs. Juliet Binitie, Facilitator, Institute for National Transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
We
much.
always enjoy it when you two come and talk to us about leadership and governance.
It's a long talk. I think people probably will do it online. I mean, a live TV conference.
We just won't stop.
No, you just have to continue. You have to continue. Thank you so much.
Sunrise will be back in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do remain with us.